Wells.
The NTSB discussing their investigation of Friday night's CARE flight crash in northern Nevada. Here's NTSB Vice Chairman Bruce Landsberg.
The last radar return was at about 11,000 feet, and the evidence we have at this point is that the aircraft broke up in flight.
All 5 people aboard the plane were killed. America is listening to Fox News.
Always here to help you. This island is our home. Through the years we've been a friend to the neighbors we have known. Now we're banking on the future. Their services to choose. Bank Pacific, where others put branches, we place roots.
Join us at Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro and see why they've been crowned Guam's best Chamorro food restaurant for 9 consecutive years. Experience Chef Peter's candied salmon over scallion coconut rice, octopus tinactac, Chamorro platter, and their award-winning gourmet burgers. Or if you're looking for something healthy, try their keto-friendly menu. Come and enjoy Mezcla's half-a-day service at their Hagåtña location from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. for lunch, 5:30 p.m. to 9 p.m. for dinner, or 10 a.m. to 2:30 p.m. for their famous Sunday brunch.
A new Fox poll finding the Republican base favors former President Trump for the 2024 Republican presidential nomination. Fox's Alexandria Hoff has the details.
Trump's lead is a strong one right now. So for this debut Fox News poll of this primary season, Republican primary voters were read a list of 15 names, most of those being just potential contenders at this point. Former President Trump easily topping the list with 43%. Governor Ron DeSantis is the choice for 28%. 7% went to former UN Ambassador Nikki Haley and former Vice President Mike Pence. Texas Governor Greg Abbott and former Congresswoman Liz Cheney earned the support of 2%. Now, Trump and Haley are the only among that group who have announced a run so far. 1% or less picked other possible candidates, including Virginia Governor Glenn Youngkin and South Carolina Senator Tim Scott.
Senator Scott is expected to run. Meanwhile, on Sunday Morning Futures with Maria Bartiromo, 2024 Republican presidential candidate Nikki Haley says the U.S. should stop providing aid to our adversaries.
The number one thing I would do is stop giving foreign aid to our enemies. We give $46 billion in foreign aid.
A New Hampshire city is countering an uptick of hateful acts with love.
After swastikas were spray painted on a Portsmouth synagogue and other minority-owned businesses, the New England town is responding with kindness and connection. Concerned residents organizing a weekend they're calling Love in Bloom, offering fresh flowers to be dropped off at the vandalized buildings. Temple Israel, among the sites targeted, invited the public for an interfaith gathering Sunday to come together through music, song, and prayer. Jewish communities around the country have been extra vigilant after reports that neo-Nazis were planning a day of hate this weekend.
That's Fox's Shayna Stulin. I'm Laura Cantor, and this is Fox News.
Looking for a new home or that special place to spend your retirement? Century 21 Realty Management has the place for you. Ladera Towers Condominium in Manila. Luxury living you deserve. Amenities like a gourmet kitchen, a large jacuzzi tub, private lanai with a magnificent ocean view, and 24/7 security. Other amenities, large swimming pool, couple of tennis courts, 3-bedroom condo units are available right now. This is an opportunity you should look at now before they're all gone. Call us now at Century 21 Realty Management, 647-5003, or visit the website, LaderaTowerGuam.com or GuamProperties.com.
Half a day, this is Honey. Here at APL, our expertise and extensive network can help you grow your business and reach out to more global markets. As a responsible carrier, APL is also committed to a sustainable future, whether it's protecting the environment or investing our efforts in giving back to the community. Our dedicated teams in Guam, Saipan, and on U.S. mainland are here to support you. Call 588-4651 or visit apl.com.
Chili's has just rolled out the best version yet of the 3 for $15 meal deal. Mix and match your choice of beverage and starter with the largest selection of entrees. Enjoy crowd favorite dishes like the honey chipotle chicken crispers with rice, bacon ranch quesadillas, or the juicy Santa Fe burger. There's so many combinations to choose from that you might have to three-peat to try them all. So come on down and make your own 3 for $15 meal deal at Chili's. More life and great value happen here.
Welcome to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, the only show on talk radio where common sense is a lot more common. Phone lines are now open at 888-TALK. That's 888-8255. And now, The Point proudly brings you Tall Tales with Senator Bob Klitzkie.
A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Even on a Monday afternoon, Jose.
Especially on a Monday afternoon.
Especially on a Monday afternoon, our favorite day of the week. We've got a whole week of Tall Tales ahead of us, and as you know, I'm wearing my red shirt today because it is Red Shirt Monday.
I almost mistook you for a fire engine.
I'm so bright red, right? And here I'm sitting here with this lanya around my neck that I really don't need. Yeah, so here it is, Red Shirt Monday, and of course we'll be talking a little bit later on about systemic racism and the poor folks amongst us who are colorblind, who would look at my picture today on the screen and say, what in the world is Bob talking about? That shirt, it's not red, it's orange.
Say what?
Yeah, and these, of course, would be the tailgaters. The tailgaters are not going to be fooled when they go to a fiesta just because the counselors are there saying, you better not call our red rice anything but red rice. All right, let's see what we got here for Dummy Ekotny today. This is a really intriguing title. Our view, homeless plan should consider past failures. Yeah, that's what I like about our government. It's the can-do spirit. Well, you know, we're going to try this again because, you know, we've tried it 3 or 4 times before and we screwed it up every time. So we think probably we're going to be able to do it again and screw it up just as bad. We've got to keep in mind our past failures. So here's how the editorial goes. In a recent presentation to the Mayor's Council, Attorney General Douglas Moylan addressed quality of life issues on island, including homeless encampments. Now, this is really kind of interesting, Jose. I'm just going to stop here and compare and contrast. Compare the Douglas Moylan who ran for Attorney General with the one that we have now. The one that ran for Attorney General rebutted Leavin in January when Leavin in January says, well, we can't just lock them up. We've got to have treatment and we've got to do this and we've got to do that. And Doug Moylan says, I'm not a social worker. I'm an Attorney General. It's my job to lock people up, to prosecute criminals, to keep them off the street. And now what's he doing? Well, you know, we've got these homeless people, and I'm going to work with the contract with the, that school to see if we can teach them some things, have Department of Labor come over there. And, you know, all of a sudden, Doug Moylan, the super crime fighter, has become Doug Moylan, the social justice warrior. He wants somebody from the Trades Academy to come over there and see if we can teach these people some marketable skills.
So I don't feel alone then, because I felt the same sentiment hearing that this morning, going, oh, that's interesting. The AG's office is now a social worker's office.
Yeah. And then he sent investigators over there to tell him that they're going to have to pack up and go. I don't know what authority he has to tell anybody to do that.
None.
He has the ability to enjoin public nuisances, and you may be able to make some kind of an argument that when someone is illegally occupying government land, that some sort of an ejectment or eviction type process might work. But I'd have to hit the books on that one myself, because I have read not too long ago that the Ninth Circuit has ruled in a case out of Honolulu that you cannot you cannot chase people out of their homeless encampments just because they're homeless encampments unless you provide them a place to stay. Because if you just chase them out of their cubbyholes or whatever you want to call it, their nests, that would be an Eighth Amendment violation, cruel and unusual punishment to tell somebody you can't live here when he has no place to live.
Now, what I find interesting is when there's all those blighted, broken down buildings in Tumon, they didn't go to the buildings and say, you guys have to fix yourselves or leave.
Yeah.
They went to the people who own that land, own those buildings. Where's the responsibility of the private landowners?
Exactly. Yeah. If there's a public nuisance being maintained on your property, it's you. It's not them. It's you. So is there a desire here in his first couple of months of office for our new Attorney General, the toughest fighter of crime, AG, to now become all things to all people?
Maybe it's because it's Lent.
Could be. But, it's like there aren't enough dragons, right outside of his office down at the courthouse, enough dragons for him to slay. That he has to perhaps develop a squad of dragon hunters to go out and find new dragons that he could take battle with. I would think that there's enough work in the search warrants and affidavits that Candid discovered to keep a crime fighter busy for quite some time. So I'm not crazy about this homeless thing either, and it's unsightly, it's unsanitary, it's uninviting. It certainly doesn't put a very good face on our attempts to be a tourist destination. But I don't think it's as serious as some of the other things that our criminal justice system needs to be dealing with, our crystal methamphetamine epidemic, all of the crimes, the robberies, the burglaries, the carjacking, every day you pick up the sexual abuse, etc. So going on with the editorial. On Friday, Moylan, along with Lieutenant Governor Tenorio, David O'Meara Savares, held a press conference where they discussed the camp across from Micronesia Mall. You notice they use a strange form of English here, Jose. They said the sentence said, held a press conference where they discussed the camp across from Micronesia Mall. When everybody knows the way you're supposed to say that is, held a press conference where they discussed the camp across Micronesia Mall. That's the way we do it here, right? The goal, Moylan explained, was to relocate people to give them the help that they need. We presume that these people are in need of help because they are living in conditions unlike the rest of us and require assistance, he said. Notices were posted on the camp that let the homeless know they would be required to vacate in 5 days or their belongings would be removed.
I'm curious what agency is going to do that.
Exactly. Now, in another article that I read, he said investigators from his office were the ones that came out there. Now, the Attorney General does have investigators. They are peace officers. They probably are armed, and they can make arrests. But I think to invest them with regular police officers, even a cop, just can't go over there and say, you guys got to get out of there. That would be my analysis of this thing. So that they would be required to move in 5 days. Now, fortunately, we got a lawyer shortage here on the island. As Jay Areola explained to us not long ago. But this sounds like 1942, 1983 civil rights lawsuit by coming along, acting under color of state law and roasting people and confiscating their property without due process of law. Tenorio explained that while being homeless is not a crime, our efforts are to try to identify folks so that we can provide them with proper shelter. Tenorio said the encampment in question has been the scene of violence and other activities that have raised concerns. Well, Lieutenant Governor, if you want to be a social justice warrior, have at it. In addition, the camp has been the focus of numerous government outreach attempts in the past, Tenorio said. Some of the members of the camp have been sheltered before. Unfortunately, some of them have violated shelter rules and found themselves outside. Some have refused shelter. So it is, of course, a very complicated situation. I got to jump in here again. And tried to make this point before. There is not a problem called the homeless problem. There are people that have various kinds of problems. Some have drug problems. Some have mental health problems like schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, and so on. Some have mental health problems. Some are just really lazy people that would rather lay around in the boonies and get off their ass and get a job. Some have crappy personalities but didn't have enough money to run for president. And got crossways with their families, and their family said, you got to get out of here. We're not putting up with your stuff anymore. And they're inept to the point where they can't find shelter. You know, they locked themselves out of their 25-year-old car, and they can't get in. They can't sleep in the car anymore. All of these problems are different, and saying, well, we've got to help the homeless adds nothing to the mix whatsoever. There are reasons that people are homeless, and they all have to be treated the same. In 1975, I don't remember the name of the case, but the Supreme Court ruled that the cops can't roust somebody just because he's acting extremely foolishly out on the street. And you don't see it much here, but you go to any city, downtown San Francisco, parts of New York, you see the bag ladies out there, the guys standing on the corners preaching to an audience of thousands that only they can see, doing really silly stuff. And these people probably are certifiably ready to be institutionalized because they have severe mental health problems. But the Supreme Court has said if they're not a danger to someone else and they're not a danger to themselves, sorry about that. You got to let them go. So there's some of that. But just to say, well, we got to bring the folks over here from Guam Trades Academy and Department of Labor. We'll get them all jobs. We'll find them a place to live. Get them tailgater shirts so they'll be able to fit in anywhere then. If they got a shirt that says I'm a tailgater on it, man, they got it made. It just doesn't work. You know, I've read about cities that rented hotels and took the homeless people out of the streets and put them in hotel rooms. So what you got then is prostitution and drug dealing in nice rooms instead of out on the street. It doesn't change anything. It doesn't change attitude. It doesn't change behavior. So going back to this editorial, on Saturday, Moylan sent letters to Guam Community College, the Chamber of Commerce, the Contractors Association, letting them know that individuals from the homeless camp will be brought to the Day-to-Day flea market. What are they going to do, sell them? Sell them into slavery? Yeah, 35-year-old white male, able to lift 60 pounds in a single jerk. Yeah, Day-to-Day flea market where support services will be made available to them, and some of them might be interested in finding a job. You know, if I had a company, Jose, I'd have my whole HR department. I can't think of more desirable employees than those folks, right?
I have a really important anecdotal story to tell, I think, and this related to rounding up these homeless people would have different stories and different reasons. and just saying, we're going to give you a job. I know of a place here on Guam, and if I say the name, everyone will know what I'm talking about, that served the homeless. And one time, the person in charge of that kitchen said, I'm going to give a job to any of you men who want, he only said men at the time, because he knew the women had their children with them, men who want to work during the day, please see me after dinner. Only a handful of maybe 20 people or so, and I'm of course simplifying the story, came that evening and said, yeah, I'm interested. Okay, come back tomorrow during the day. I have some work for you, because this place is an all-volunteer place. The next day, 2 people showed up.
Sure.
And they did some work. Halfway through, one of the persons said, this is not for me, and went back to whatever he was doing.
Yeah. And
there was only one person out of all those people that he asked that remained, and he actually did something for himself, got himself his GED, and is gainfully employed right now. It's amazing that it's not just about handouts. These people have their own reasons, and that's what you have to look at, not these kind of handouts.
Yeah. Yeah, and it can't be all, let's be really nice to these people. It probably is not going to work very well. I'm going to drop a word here that I'll come back to later on in the show. The key word here is human capital. People who do not have human capital probably are not going to are not possessed of any human capital, are not going to fare very well in the world. And that's what they need. But they got to realize that it doesn't come for nothing. So much of this stuff, Jose, is like riding a bicycle. You can have a $1,000 bicycle, and you can have somebody help you up and sit you on the seat and put your feet on the pedals, right? And if you just sit there, you know what's going to happen to you? You're going to fall on your face because you got a pedal. And life is like that. Okay, I'm going to finish this editorial, and then I probably one of the guys across the street over there who's got a nice cell phone. It's probably got an iPhone, right? It's probably calling here. I got our Carl who wants to talk about homelessness. Let me finish this up here, our Carl. Of course, many of them likely don't have the documentation necessary to get a job or enroll in a training course. Others may be struggling with substance abuse, mental illness, or both. Before embarking on these undertakings, our leaders need to consider why past outreach efforts didn't work. Well, that's right. Just the headline got kind of crossways with that. As the Lieutenant Governor said, the problem of homelessness is complicated. The services needed extend beyond jobs, training, and even shelter. As cities across the country have learned, this is a problem without an easy answer. Yeah, what do you think, Jose?
It's true. There's no easy answer. I have lots of homelessness anecdotal stories because I've worked with them throughout the years in different capacities. But for the main part of it, a lot of them choose to be this way because it is a lifestyle. Mm-hmm. We also have to start looking at them as from their perspective rather than us going, you don't live the way I live. You have to change that.
Exactly.
And that's not how we have to approach it.
Yeah, well, when I talked about this before, this was the solution that I provided. I would set up a camp, sort of, where there were showers, and each one of these homeless folks would have a locker that he could lock tightly. If he did have documents, he could keep them in there. Access to washing machines, etc. Some public health folks, etc. And something like army cots. So if you show up there, you could take a shower. You could sign up for one of these lockers. You'd have a place to sleep. If charitable folks wanted to come by with some chow, fine. But it just seems strange to me that we would take someone who doesn't have the desire to improve his lot and then put him in a nice apartment. Where a lot of folks really have to struggle hard to pay the rent on that apartment, when it's so much easier just to go out and sleep in the boonies and have somebody scoop you up and take you up there and put you in there. It just doesn't seem right. Okay, well, our Carl, he's such a bleeding heart here. He's probably going to scold me for not being harder on the homeless. All right, here is the social justice warrior. Oh, wait a minute. I got the wrong That's not you, is it, Earl Carl?
I don't think so. Yeah, when I see these people out begging, one of the things that strike me is how many of them are able-bodied. I mean, these are not people. I mean, once in a while you spot someone in a wheelchair, or someone that looks. I mean, they're in a pretty pitiful state, and they deserve to get some help. But most of them I see are able-bodied. A lot of them are young. They're well clothed. Some of them better clothed than I am. And that just strikes me as very odd. But I think a story that happened several years ago. A friend of mine, his brother was teaching high school, and one day he just got fed up with the class because they're all ignoring him. Well, not all, but many of them were ignoring him, feet up on the desk, chatting with each other. So he shut down everything and he had a talk with them. He said, "Don't you guys care about after you graduate? That you have a way to make a living. The typical response was, why should we care? I'm going to shack up with my girlfriend. We're going to go on food stamps. We're going to get all kinds of assistance. None of this matters to me." And his brother eventually quit teaching. He was so disappointed. But the expansion of the welfare state has just devastated the ambition and work ethic of local people, and I mean of every race and ethnicity, and so too in the United States, the same thing. Hispanics, blacks, whites, and the same exact thing happened in the UK. There's a excellent book that was written by a doctor writing under a pen name. The name of the book is Life at the Bottom, and it chronicles the devastation wreaked on British society by expansion of the welfare state. And it's exactly the same. Graffiti, gangs, violence, it's identical. So the problems we're seeing are just the fruit of what has been planted by some maybe well-intentioned people, but it has just devastated local society. Same as in the States, same as in the UK. Nothing has changed. So to not address that, we've spent since the Johnson administration started their Great Society, the war on poverty, we spent an estimated over $27 trillion. And the poverty rate has barely budged. It's gone up and down a little bit, but it hasn't changed. If they'd have only taken some of that money and spent it on helping people get human capital, so they had a marketable skill they could trade in the marketplace. But it's not about solving that problem. It's about keeping people dependent, keeping them voting for the same party, the same dependency for decade after decade, generation after generation. That's what it's really about. It's about political power. It's not about really helping people. It's not. Otherwise, they would have changed their strategy by now.
Yeah, I gotta go along with you there, Carl. Humans have free will. People have the ability to make decisions for themselves. But as a general principle, if you want less of something, you tax it. If you want more of something, you subsidize it. So if you want more people laying about and not working, subsidize it. Give them some money for not working. And you're probably going to wind up with more people not working.
Exactly. I've made a hobby, as I might have mentioned, of collecting these stories of people who overcome adverse situations in life. I've got hundreds of them, articles and videos and things like that, because they are very encouraging to me. My favorite one, or one of my favorites, is by a guy named. It's about a guy named Richie Parker. He's a young black man, no arm. He was born with no arms. And his parents didn't want him to have a victim mentality, so they insisted that he, as much as possible, lead as normal as possible of a life. And he now has a good job with a car design company. He manipulates the mouse under his desk using his feet, and he drives a specially made car with no arms. And he's got a very positive attitude, and he's doing well. If anyone wants to watch that video, it's very encouraging. It's called "How Do You Get Through Your Day" on YouTube. But I have countless stories of people who have been handed kind of a raw deal. Life isn't fair. And I grew up poor also. I understand that. I get that. But we've been given so many tools in the American system, but we have to pick those tools up and we have to use them. And people making bad social choices, hanging around the wrong crowds, not bothering to invest in themselves, drinking, carousing, partying, endless gaming, all this stuff, and then getting resentful because other people who did the exact opposite, who worked hard, get better results. It doesn't make any sense. Anyway, Bob, thank you for allowing me to do my little rant. I appreciate it. It's very therapeutic for me.
Well, we're glad you tune us in, R. Carl. We always like to listen to you. So long. Yeah, we got to take a short break. And I want to come back to a post from, was it Marie Rojas? Yeah.
Wishing you a happy, healthy, and prosperous new year from your friends at Security Title. As we clean house for the new year, this is an excellent time to make sure the title to your land is also in order. It doesn't matter if you own a ranch in Inarajan, a house in Dededo, or a hotel in Tumon. Keeping the ownership clear promotes peace in the family and can avoid future misunderstandings. When it comes to your family property, call the professionals at Security Title. We are here to help.
Always here to help you. This island is our home. Through the years, we've been a friend to the neighbors we have known. Now we're banking on the future. More services to choose. Bank Pacific, where others put branches, we place roots.
We now return to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, soaring over the confusion with his superpowers of truth. Call 888-TALK. That's 888-8255.
Okay, I think I'm in for trouble now, Jose, because I said a few things that perhaps were not complimentary about Doug Moylan. And I think I've got a Doug Moylan supporter on the line here who's going to really put me in my place. And senior name Maratiju. Magahid Nancy, Pete?
Like the Donny, very Nancy. But, I was having lunch today, and one of my lunch mates was poking at me. He goes, it seems like you're best friends with Bob Klitzkie. I said, I have a lot of respect for the guy because, one, he's super humble, and two, he's a straight shooter, and he always tells it like it is, And so that's why I wanted to chime in because, you're calling it, you're shooting straight on this issue, and I want to bring back a word or repeat a word that we've tossed around back and forth in the past, and that's called saviorism, right?
Right, Pete.
And people don't understand that saviorism is so harmful to, people want to put on capes and be Superman and the superhero, and all they're doing is perpetuating and enabling the dependency.
Yeah, that's a good point, Pete. I think we hung that one on Neil Weird once upon a time, didn't we?
Right. But it's an affliction that is not non-discriminatory. A lot of people get it, and the problem is they think that they're helping, but they're really doing more harm.
True enough.
That's the problem with saviorism.
Yes, it is. So you think that Doug Moylan tests positive for the saviorism virus, Pete?
No, I think he tests positive for the publicity stunt virus.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, I think that's all it is. But you know, we'll see. We'll see. I mean, at least it got the conversation going. At least it got the people that's involved together. You know, I'm not. I'm not past or you know. I will give credit where credit is due. I think you know, he's brought them together. I don't agree with a lot of the statements that he made, but at least everyone's at the table.
Okay, Pete, and I want to thank you for your kind words. I do tend to be a straight shooter, I hope, and I usually try to aim before I shoot, which is sort of a rarity nowadays, where a lot of folks practice the ready, fire, aim approach. But on the matter of humility, you know, being humble, etc., I'm glad you recognize that, because you know I'm very proud of my humility.
but let me give you one quick anecdotal story about you know, people that aren't pulling their own weight. I remember I was driving on back road with Tom Cruise. You remember the police officer Tom Cruise, right?
I do, yeah.
Not the Top Gun guy.
Yeah.
So we're driving on back road, and it's a hot day, and this guy in the middle of back road to Anderson is walking on the side of the road, and we're in the patrol car, and then Tom pulls over and stops, and he goes, "Why are you walking?" He goes, "Because I got no car." He goes, "See, you should have finished school." And then Tom took off and left. I said, "How come you didn't want to give him a ride?" He says, the side of our car says Guam Police, not Guam Taxi."
Oh, okay. All right.
But, you know, that's absolutely true, right? Why are you walking? I got no car. Well, you should have finished school. I mean, Tom doing that is more service to that young kid than it is to coddle them.
Yeah, I see your point, Pete. That's a good point.
Yeah. And like I said, the side of the patrol car said Guam Police, not Guam Taxi.
There you go. Okay.
All right.
Always a pleasure, repeat. So let's come back to, what was her name? Rojas?
Maria? Marie.
Yeah, where is it? Can you find it, Jose?
Yeah, I have it here. You want me to read it?
Please.
Said, just found out that my son's teacher has a LGBTQ flag hung in his classroom. This is upsetting. I respect everyone's choices, but my point of view is that it has no place in the classroom to make an impression on my child. Curious, what is your point of view?
Yeah, I agree 100%. And I have some cheap advice, Marie. Don't let this go. Blow it up. Post the name of the teacher, post the name of the school, post the name of the principal, and I'll make those people famous if I know who they are, and I'll do it right now. And then I'm hoping that you'll go along with what Bonnie says. The principal needs to find out that this is absolutely unacceptable. And if that doesn't work, there's a chain of command. We got a couple newspapers that publish letters to the editor. You know that there's a talk show here on the island that's on this kind of stuff, like White on Rice. So please don't let it go.
Plus, all schools have a uniform policy, and they also have a policy about logos and slogans on other articles of clothing. And this constitutes something divergent from the policy. You know, the students have to adhere to something like this and be neutral. The classrooms also. I can see the Stars and Stripes, the Guam flag, and maybe the flag of the school if there exists one.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I agree, but it's really up to Marie here to do something, to as the saying goes, out these folks, right? Yeah. If you want to hang a rainbow flag out in front of your own house, fine. Yeah, but you don't have a license to hang it in my school.
And that goes the same for a yellow "Don't Tread on Me" flag.
Exactly. Yeah. Okay, so let's see what we got on the card for today. Did I forget my card? Probably. Yeah, sure enough, I did. So I'll start out here with systemic racism. Yeah, good. Thanks, Jose. Yeah, let's see what we got here today. We've got Tom Woods versus racism, Julian Jansen versus working people, Won't Parkinson versus working people, Samantha Brennan versus working people, Tan versus the maskless, and Jonathan, yeah, that's Tan versus the maskless. That's enough to keep us busy for a while. So today we got systemic racism, and I don't need to belabor the point too much. You know what it's all about. You can see, if you're watching on Facebook, you can see that the rice is orange. Just like if you look at my shirt, you can tell my shirt is orange. Right?
Wait, it's red.
Uh-huh.
How dare you?
Exactly. And you know that I've told the story before about Paul Zerzan writing a letter to the editor saying it's about time we really start calling things what they really are. It ain't red rice, it's orange rice. And the Daily News came back and canceled him. And this is so fitting as to where we are today with the neo-Marxists and the cultural Marxists and their narrative, which runs headlong into the truth and the facts and almost always prevails, at least in the media cartel publications. So, you know, the truth is that if you were born with an X and a Y chromosome, you're a man. You're going to be a man until you die. In fact, you're going to, even after you die, you're still going to be a man. But the cultural Marxists say, no, if a person really wants to be a woman, he's a woman, and on and on and on, and then two men could get all of this stuff. And it's just not true. It's just not factual. It doesn't fit any of our life experiences and the bulk of and the amount of knowledge that we bring to any situation. But a person who would stand up and say that runs the risk of getting canceled and having his life ruined. Even a nominee to the United States Supreme Court, when asked what is a definition of a woman, said, how can I say that? I'm not a biologist. I mean, it's just BS. So then that person probably doesn't know if she is a woman or not, or if they are a woman or not. And you see how crazy it gets? It's just like Sarah Huckabee Sanders says, there are only two choices. There's us, there's normal, or them. And it's crazy. It's just crazy everywhere. So that's why I keep coming. That's why I called it systemic racism. When you got something as obvious as the color of my shirt, but the narrative says it's red, and if you have the temerity to come out and say it's not red, it's orange, you're going to get canceled. And that comes up in so many of the items on the card that it's worth keeping in mind. Today's got a little, Jose's going to have a little presentation tomorrow on systemic racism, which I'm sure you'll find very interesting. So we'll go on from there to see what else is on the card. I've got let me see here. My papers got all messed up today somehow. Yeah, let's take a short break while I get my stuff straightened out here, Jose.
Join us at Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro and see why they've been crowned Guam's best Chamorro food restaurant for 9 consecutive years. Experience Chef Peter's candied salmon over scallion coconut rice, octopus tenactac, Chamorro platter, and their award-winning gourmet burgers. Or if you're looking for something healthy, try their keto-friendly menu. Come and enjoy Mezcla's half-a-day service at their Hagåtña location from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. for lunch, 5:30 p.m. to 9 p.m. for dinner, or 10 a.m. to 2:30 p.m. for their famous Sunday brunch.
Tunay na kaibigan at handa para sa inyo. Ang bangko ng kinabukasan, laging maaari.
Okay, I'm going to start out with an alternate op-ed that I brought along today before I get into the card. I forgot that I had it. And this is something over the pen of the legendary Ginger Crunden Cruz, known to us all. And Ginger kind of hit on something. She didn't phrase it in the terms that I would use, but earlier in the show I mentioned the word human capital, and we're going to get to that. But here's what Ginger says. In the 1600s, Guam's place in the world stemmed from its use by the Spanish galleons as a resupply point. Over the next 5 centuries, Guam continued to be the gas station for the great powers of the world, a place for the titans to stop by, refuel, stock up, and move on. Even after becoming a U.S. territory, only one president treated us more than a refueling stop, and that took a lot of effort. That would have been William Jefferson Clinton, Jose. This limited view of our island has in turn limited Guam's opportunities to benefit from economic activity tied to our location. Limited view by whom, I wonder she's talking about. But I'll get into that. Today, as the geopolitical landscape of the Indo-Pacific region is again being reshaped, Guam is reminded that our primary strategic value as a gas station in the Western Pacific once again has drawn a target on our backs that will require us to update civil defense disaster plans. Large military buildup numbers, up to $11 billion being spent over 5 years, have been popping up on many a PowerPoint presentation. But realistically, Guam citizens and businesses are not going to see most of that. Rather, we will be more concerned with navigating soaring housing prices due to the pressure on local resources caused by the economic activity that is largely within the purview of major defense contractors, and hoping that taxes we collect will be enough to support our community needs until post-COVID tourism can recover. Growth is good, but not all growth is equal. And we're kind of back to the bicycle, Jose. We're back to, there's this bicycle here, and we could climb on it, but if we do, we got to pedal. We can't just sit back and expect these things are going to fall in our lap, or even worse, well, the government just isn't fair because they're building all of these things and they're hiring these contractors, and the contractors come from off-island and they bring their workers in from off-island. I'm going to get to human capital here before we're done. If you're satisfied with where we are, then you can stop reading and check out the ads for the latest sale. If you're not satisfied, then you are someone who understands we need to get serious about building a different future for Guam. Now, she's starting to get on the right track here.
I was waiting for you to say something like that.
Yeah. We need to rethink workforce policy in order to create economic activity that will engage our best and brightest and offer long-term opportunities for high-paying careers and reverse the brain drain. And that's where the concept of human capital comes in. And over the years, we have not invested in human capital. Some people have. They've invested in their own human capital and have done very, very well. But as an island, as a society, certainly not as a government, have we. Look at our school system. Just look. You don't need to do anything more than just look. And that tells you an awful lot. Now, there is a bright spot, and that's GCC, and I suspect that some of our success stories are GCC success stories. Going back to Ginger, our economy relies on tourism and federal military spending. Tourism remains a low-paying industry. Only a handful of people will make it into successful management careers, and most tourism jobs do not pay well. For those who join the military, most will be stationed away from Guam. On the contractor side, high-paying positions, computer work, cybersecurity, specialized engineering are filled with off-island contractors. We have to start now to educate Guam's youth and workforce for highly skilled jobs in industry and management. Yeah, well, how about increasing the Chamorro language program in the schools? Would that do it, Jose?
Nope.
Yeah, because I expect that companies, that need skillful engineers, folks that can work with blueprints, all of the technical stuff, parts of construction, are probably going to say, if the guy can't speak Chamorro, or if the gal can't, I don't want him on the job, because they're not preserving the culture. We have to start now to educate Guam's youth and workforce for highly skilled jobs in industry and management, skills that will make Guam more attractive as headquarters for regional companies. Instead of bringing in experts, we need to become the experts. Now, I heard on the radio the other day that the chief of police says he's having a really difficult time recruiting cops because people apply and they can't pass the tests. And one of our senators introduced a bill to waive the testing requirements for corrections officers.
Oh, sounds about right.
Yeah, that's a way to increase human capital, right? And Ginger's got a point here, but you don't take the kid who can't spell cat without using a K when he graduates from high school and then put him into a civil engineering program. That's not going to work very well. You kind of got to start out at the very beginning, and we have never, ever done that. The administration has identified several promising areas: healthcare, pharmaceuticals, transshipment and additive manufacturing, 3D printing, to name a few. Bringing these to fruition will take more than companies want to invest. The linchpin is human resources. Yes, it is. A building does not make a company. It's the talent and skills of the people inside. Now, I know our Carl is listening, so I got to stop here and do a little Thomas Sowell for a moment, right? But Thomas Sowell, traced the success of various countries around the world, starting out with the proposition that Ireland, Scotland, and Wales, different race. They're not Anglo-Saxons, they're Celt, C-E-L-T, Celtic people, right? And Scotland, as you were Ireland and Wales, never prospered like the country of England did. And Scotland was way behind for a long time until they decided to start investing in human capital. And they caught up really quick. Japan was closed to the rest of the world until 1857. The old shogunates, the samurais, et cetera, was
the end of that age, right?
Yeah, and when the United States forced Japan to open up its ports and become exposed to the rest of the world, in 50 years they beat the Russian Navy. How did they do that? Because they invested in human capital, and they caught up really, really quickly. We haven't done that here. We have not invested in human capital. And because of that, that's why so many technical people have to be brought in. And now we can't even get lawyers to come back here once they graduated from law school. We need people on Guam with the education and the drive to fill highly skilled jobs with the tools to innovate, so that as they grow, Guam develops organic skills to set up regional and global operations here. Research and development centers are essential building blocks in one place to start, like the Research Triangle in North Carolina, Raleigh, Durham, and what's the third one?
I only know Aiken.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's that.
It'll come to me in a minute. Well, they were all really invested in tobacco. I mean, that was tobacco writ large. North Carolina, Winston, Salem, all of the tobacco companies Raleigh were located in that part of North Carolina. But they saw the handwriting on the wall, and they knew that this was literally a dying industry. So the powers that be, and it was a lot of private capital, invested in research capabilities, so that now that those three cities are known as the research capital, and they're much more prosperous than they ever were when all they were doing was puffing on cigarettes. And that's the kind of thinking that we need here. And if we're going to rely on the government to do it, it ain't going to happen. It's just not going to happen. We must think bigger, build up the institutes that will train students in foreign languages, international trade, negotiations, advanced contract and financing techniques. We should nurture a generation of multilingual businessmen and women that can compete for leading positions in top companies in the Pacific and the world, and then leverage our location as the United States and Asia. I couldn't have said it better, Jose. So do we want to set up our school systems here to prepare kids to spend the rest of their lives on Guam? Or do we want to set up our school system here so that kids that grow up here and go to school here can compete anywhere in the world? Now, I think historically, we've always seen St. John's School, as the place, if you want your kid maybe to get a job on Wall Street or the New York Times or something like that, better send them to St. John's. Yeah, let's take a short break here for the halftime show and the Hope Cristobal show.
The Point is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
Where did COVID originate? I'm Laura Cantor, Fox News. A new report from the Wall Street Journal says the Energy Department believes that a Chinese lab leaked the coronavirus. Fox's Lucas Tomlinson has more from the White House.
President Biden's National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan refusing to confirm nor deny that classified report. He spoke earlier.
There is a variety of views in the intelligence community. Some elements of the intelligence community have reached conclusions on one side, some on the other. A number of them have said they just don't have enough information to be sure.
House Foreign Affairs Committee Chairman Michael McCall releasing a statement a short time ago, quote, "I'm pleased the Department of Energy has finally reached the same conclusion that I had already come to. I have requested a full and thorough briefing from the administration on this report and the evidence behind it."
The FBI also says they believe the coronavirus started in a lab. The EPA announcing Sunday that Norfolk Southern will resume shipping hazardous waste out of East Palestine, Ohio, beginning Monday. On February 3rd, a 38-car train derailment there, releasing toxic materials. Officials still claiming the air and water are clean, despite residents' health and safety concerns. Here's EPA Region 5 Administrator Deborah Shore.
I continue to be pleased that there have been no exceedances for residential air quality standards, and outdoor air quality remains normal. We will continue to offer the air screening service to any resident within the evacuation zone who wants screening.
The National Transportation Safety Board releasing a report that says the train's operators were warned shortly before the crash of an overheated axle. Tens of thousands gathering in Mexico City's main plaza to protest Mexico's electoral law changes, which they say threaten democracy. The proposals were passed last week. America is listening to Fox News.
Family Finance has been serving the people of Guam since 1959, and they will continue to be there for you in the years to come. Whether you're looking to get a personal loan for that summer vacation or paying off those long overdue bills, Family Finance has got you covered. Apply for a personal loan from $1,000 up to $4,100 by calling Family Finance in Hagåtña at 671-475-4545, Upper Tumon 671-647-5626, or in Dededo 671-633-4473.
Attention investors, Century 21 Realty Management is proud to present an investment opportunity you have to look at. Ladera Towers Condominium provides luxury living centrally located in Manila with access to the entire island. Ladera Towers has 3-bedroom condominium units available now. See them before they're all gone. 4-bedroom units sold out. This investment is only going to appreciate in value. Call now, Century 21 Realty Management. The number is 647-5003, or visit laderatowerguam.com or guamproperties.com.
Dozens of migrants were killed when their boat crashed off the Italian coast early Sunday. Fox's Kevin Uretsky has the details.
The Italian Coast Guard says the boat smashed into a rocky reef before dawn, and Italian state TV quoted survivors as saying the boat had left Turkey 5 days ago with more than 200 on board in all. The Coast Guard saying about 120 of those were migrants. In a statement, Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni expressed her, quote, deep sorrow for the many human lives torn away by human traffickers, calling the process inhumane and promising to crack down. During services in St. Peter's Square Sunday, Pope Francis showed sadness about the fact that many of the victims were children, saying, quote, I pray for each of them, for the missing and the other migrants who survived.
A Virginia teacher winning $5 million in her false sex abuse charge lawsuit. Fox's Chris DeMeo has more.
The judgment coming in a civil case against the police official who arrested 36-year-old Kimberly Winters in an early morning raid. It came after a former student accused Winters of sex abuse. Back in 2018, she claimed police barged into her room, grabbed her from her bed, and left her outside in handcuffs for neighbors to see. The case was dropped months later after prosecutors further looked into the allegations.
Actor Brendan Fraser winning the award for Outstanding Performance by a Male Actor in a Leading Role for his film The Whale at Sunday night's 2023 Screen Actors Guild Awards. Here's Fraser giving his acceptance speech.
Believe me, if you just stay in there and you put one foot in front of the other, you'll get to where you need to go. Have courage.
Sound courtesy of the Screen Actors Guild and Netflix's YouTube page. Everything Everywhere All at Once taking home the Best Ensemble Prize. I'm Laura Cantor, and this is Fox News.
Every company needs money to grow and take on the challenges 2023 will bring.
That's why Bank Pacific's commercial loan officers stand ready to help you.
We offer several programs tailored to assist companies to get to the next step or perhaps for a startup,
including working with SBA or GITA.
Now we're banking on the future. Services to choose. Bank Pacific, where others put branches.
Bank Pacific.
We want to be your partner.
Equal Opportunity Lender. Member FDIC.
Credit conditions apply.
Wishing you a happy, healthy, and prosperous new year from your friends at Security Title. As we clean house for the new year, this is an excellent time to make sure the title to your land is also in order. It doesn't matter if you own a ranch in Inarajan, a house in Dededo, or a hotel in Tumon. Keeping the ownership clear promotes peace in the family and can avoid future misunderstandings. When it comes to your family property, call the professionals at Security Title. We are here to help.
Listen to The Point anytime, anywhere on Odyssey. Odyssey is your new audio home for all the music, news, sports, and podcasts that matter to you. Find your favorite stations like The Point and discover more. Music stations, local and trusted news sources, sports talk and team coverage, plus today's biggest podcasts. Find it all on the Odyssey app. AUDACY.
So here we are. Tell them again, Jose. Sometimes people forget.
I'll tell it every single day, except Saturday and Sunday.
Good.
Where you can get your I'm a Tailgater t-shirt, just go to thepoint.gu on your web browser. That'll bring you to the official website of this radio station. There, look for the picture of I'm a Tailgater t-shirt and the beard, and that'll take you to the website where you can order your t-shirt. When it comes in the mail, take it out, put it on, take a selfie, and send that selfie to the Point's WhatsApp number at 671-797-8255, and you too can become a Tall Tales Rogues Gallery member.
Very good, Jose. Looks like I've got the phone system going wrong. Yeah, okay. So I looked it up. It's Raleigh, Durham, and Chapel Hill, North Carolina. The Research Triangle. And one of the real intelligence factories in the country here. A lot of human capital developed there. And of course, another place is the so-called Silicon Valley, Palo Alto, and some of these other Bay Area cities like the one I'm thinking of here, San Jose, etc. I'll tell you where I really screwed up, Jose. 30 years ago, I should have gone to San Jose and taken an option to rent every single garage that I could find in San Jose, because all the important computer inventions were put together in somebody's garage. So the landlord that controlled all of those garages would have been really rich.
Forget the homes, just rent out the garage.
Just the garage. But a classic example, you know, the people that didn't have a whole lot of capital, like money, but had a lot of human capital and worked hard and were entrepreneurs and innovators and made tremendous amounts of money and made the world a better place to live.
That's the Apple computer. That's the story I remember.
Yeah, exactly. So back to Ginger's column here. She says, we need people with the education and drive to fill highly skilled jobs with the tools to innovate, so that as they grow, Guam develops organic skills to set up regional and global operations. Research and development centers are essential building blocks and one place to start. We must think bigger. Build up the institutes that will train students in foreign languages, international trade, negotiations, advanced contracting, and finance techniques. We should nurture a generation of multilingual businessmen and women that can compete for leading positions in the top companies in the Pacific and the world, and then leverage our location as the United States and Asia. Now, I've been saying this for a long, long time. Had we played our cards right, say from 1965 on, American companies would be tripping to set over each other to set up their Asian headquarters here. Because the attraction would be this. You can be in almost the same time zone as Japan, Korea, Vietnam, Sydney, the same time zone as Sydney, and relatively short airplane flights away. Now, if you could have that coupled with living in a community that offers you all of the conveniences of an American community, what a wonderful place for American companies to locate. We haven't done it. We have not done it. And I suspect that there is even a reluctance to do that, to make this a favorable place for American headquarters of American companies to locate. But that was then, this is now. Ginger goes on to say, we need to launch programs to send interns to top regional companies and then bring their newly learned skills back to Guam. It's not enough to be America's gas station collecting revenues on the margins to subsidize our people's needs. We want to be America's jewel in the Indo-Pacific, where technology and industry are nurtured. There is beauty in our land, but the true beauty is our people, and investing in them is the one sure way for Guam to realize a brighter future. It's not only it's the only way. It's the only way we're going to do it. And there seems to be very little enthusiasm for doing such things. And the people that get hurt, you know, there's a story in the paper about these two cousins that are stationed in Air Force in Okinawa, and they're both pilots, you know, and they graduated from our schools here. They went to college in the mainland.
One's a fighter pilot.
And
That's
one's
so cool.
Yeah, one's a fighter pilot. So it can be done, but we don't do an awful lot to encourage it. And as long as our schools, you know, as long as the next thing I'm wondering is when we're going to name we have this penchant for naming schools after people, Jose. You know, like, you know, Jack McClukenbach Elementary School, people you never ever heard of, right? And then they wanted to name Talafofo Elementary after two people. So that's really popular. But, you know, the way we're going, the name of the school we're going to have is the Ordot Dump Elementary, because that's what some of our schools look like. In fact, the Ordot Dump is more spiffy than some of the schools. So I got to hand it to Ginger. I'm going to give Ginger a blue star today, Jose. And here's a little bit about Ginger. Wow! Ginger is the founder and CEO of Mantid International. She formerly held positions at KUAM, worked in the Office of Governor in the 90s, and was most recently campaign advisor to the Leon Guerrero Tenorio team. Cruz was formerly Deputy Inspector General for Iraq Reconstruction and a Deputy Assistant Secretary at U.S. HUD. She has a master's in public policy from Johns Hopkins, SAIS, and a BA from the University of Pennsylvania. But what she's saying here is really kind of contrary to the governor's narrative. Yeah, this could have been on the card as Ginger Cruz versus the governor, because the governor wants to give everybody a 22% raise. That's a really good investment in human capital.
And she keeps growing the government.
And government keeps getting bigger and bigger. We saw a statement from Tom Kreis that the university was very close to the edge because the revenue they're collecting were just barely able to sustain university operations. So, you know, Ginger, why don't you've got perhaps have the governor's ear and tell the governor, let's get the government out of all of this stuff and let's open up the island to private enterprise and not just sit back and take the easy route, the 22% route. Okay, so I'm going to give Ginger the coveted blue star, even though she's not part of the media cartel. Yeah. And let's see, I got a couple people in the green room here. One of them lost heart. I've got Senator Chris. Who was the other one, Jose?
It's someone who doesn't know how to talk on the air, so we were just going to leave him there.
I got it. Okay. Okay, Senator Chris. Good afternoon.
Have a day. Good afternoon, Your Honor, Honorable Marine, Honorable Senator, my favorite talk show host. I concur with the blue star. And you know, what was interesting was today, I'm sure it will be covered heavily in the media tomorrow. Today, of course, we had the hearing on the potential appropriation for the pay raise, 22% pay raise that you're discussing today. And what was interesting is it was exactly most of the testimony, of course, from the cabinet faithful, front and center command performance, was all about the government and how these government pay raises are meant to retain and recruit, government employees. And one of the key themes was all of the exodus from the island. And so after several panels, I basically just had to interject because I have two friends and one family member that actually recently relocated mainland. And the interesting thing was they didn't do it just for pay issues. They actually did it primarily because they just can't stand the crime problem on Guam and the meth epidemic, and spending thousands of dollars on security systems and living like a prisoner in their home in one of the most beautiful villages of our island in Sinahanya, in particular, with two of them. And the other thing was the fact that what you're talking about, they were spending $30,000 to $35,000 a year for 3 or 4 of their kids to go to school, which would have been a pay raise for them just because they absolutely cannot, in good conscience, send their kids to our public schools right now. And the third member was an individual whose spouse is having difficulty with health issues and has found herself at GMH a couple of times in the deplorable conditions and the like, and the lack of specialties or any ability to kind of manage what's going on. And so for all the top reasons that we're supposed to be taking care of our community, these 3 families relocated, yes, because of the fact that they are going to have better economic opportunities. But even in one instance where the individual was moving for a job that was pretty much the same pay, just not having to send his kids, and his kids are doing wonderful in good schools in Washington State, and the health needs are being met, and they feel as though they know of crime in the area from time to time, but they hear of response times within minutes, and their entire quality of life has just changed. Now imagine what you're talking about, the dream that you always often talked about, and the restructuring of economic opportunity on Guam that Ginger's talking about. Not even just the issue of the educated workforce and the potential for companies to invest and have that capability, but on top of that now, just the quality of life issues, even if they had to bring employees with them to begin with to get things started. I mean, I know I'm going to be the bad, mean guy and the guy beating up on Guam employees and whatever, right? It'll be printed the way it's printed. But I look at it more as just a very common sense approach to what's going on in light of this limited economic opportunity that's come our way through billions and billions of dollars that have come to our island through the pandemic and through what is our now strongest leg of the economy, the only leg really that's standing and strong, which is federal spending, military and others, and just the complete lack of, I don't know how to say it, initiative and the basis by which we operate our government and try to create an attractive environment for everything that Ginger's talking about. Even if we could wave a wand and say that, you know, we could do that in the next 2, 3, 5 years, what condition are we in, even as a government and as properly functioning, to attract that company, even if we could solve some of the other issues? And so I don't, you know, this battle will go to the floor. And essentially the main thing that I pressed today was, amongst everything that was discussed, was this simple appropriation on a one-liner of $16 million is absolutely the wrong way to go. It should be a supplemental budget appropriation. And thankfully, Speaker Wombat came down to the legislature and in her testimony supported everything I've been talking about with the Department of Education. She stated that they want to make sure that the legislature does a supplemental appropriation for $22 million to cover what she's trying to work with, the ARP monies to fix the schools, and does not want to spend that on salaries, benefits, utilities, and other things that it was programmed for, and made it clear that they do not have the $7.2 million to cover this increase with all of the employees outside of the other pay structures that were issued for teachers and the like. So we actually had a sobering moment there. When you add up those numbers, it's pretty darn close to the $30 million appropriation measure that I put forward. And so I'm hoping that that will be at least the sober moment on the floor, too, when we debate this bill, to do it inside of the budget appropriation to compare what the priorities of our government need to be for our people. Finally, the judiciary came in because they were preparing for a modest, I guess, at this point, as they discussed, they control their own payroll, and they were planning on a 6% increase for this year and to support it in the next, budget cycle. But in lieu of what's going on and for parity reasons and the like, there's an additional $1.4 million needed to cover the judiciary saying, if you do this, here's our invoice. That's a little bit of a report from today, Your Honor.
It's interesting that the judiciary is the third independent co-equal branch, except when it's time to take the day after Thanksgiving off with pay. Well, the executive branch did it, so if we don't, it's going to be hard. And we were going to go with 6%, but they're going 22%, so we, not so independent when it's time for the goodies. Then they got to be just like the executive branch, right, Chris?
Yeah, absolutely. And then it's got to be the fact that, we got to pony up. There's no, like I said, once again, I admire Speaker Wampat for coming down and putting that on the record. We have no ability to absorb what's currently in our fiscal year requirements of $7.x million, and we want to make sure that we preserve our $22 million. At least fighting for what the resources exist and what's needed, other than handing us an invoice. And I think you're going to start to see, Your Honor, and I've gotten a lot of good phone calls and messages into my office. I mean, I think it's starting to resonate where, really the folly of this approach is I think taking root, and hopefully, and I want to thank all of our Republican colleagues. The entire 6 were there. Great testimony by every single one of us, talking about the ability to debate this in the proper manner. Very great questions to the panel. Very unified position. I like what Senator Fisher had to say, especially. It was like, a lot of you have some very compelling testimony and some wonderful stories. And while I want to say that I haven't officially taken a position on this, I will tell you one thing. What I'm not going to do is lie to you. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that this is absolutely doable in the face of the priorities of our government and what we actually have to do, and to give you something that maybe months or years down the road that we have to take back because we made an irresponsible act. I thought that was one of the better testimonies.
Chris, back in around the turn of the century, I made a career out of the F word that I never hear anymore. You ever hear anybody? You ever hear anybody talk about frugality anymore, Chris?
I just don't, Your Honor.
Yeah.
I just don't. I just don't. And especially the P word being bantered around quite a bit is always about parity. But once again, I had to be the bad guy and say, who's paying the bills here? The P and P word is the P after parity is private sector.
Of course.
And the fact is, Byrne and his group were trying to basically say this is a boon for the government of Guam because all of these pay raises are gonna bring about prosperity within government and the ability to have strong buying power and the withholding taxes and the like. But where's that money coming from? I mean, to recycle that from the private sector as a mode of, I don't know any more big government, far left, conversation that you can have beyond that. If that was the solution, like you've said so many times, Your Honor, why not give 100% raise? We'll all be rich.
Yep.
So it was devoid of balance, no question about it. The F word is nowhere to be found. But not knocking on those who would imbibe or the like, but I hope the S word continues to be at least discussed, and that sobriety on the issue.
Very good, Chris. And let's not forget about the T word for tall tales.
Oh, tall tales rules. There's no question about that. Look forward to the conversation as we go forward. But it was a great exchange today, and I think like I said, I'm very proud of our caucus, of a very strong representation of balance and the needs of our community. And like I said, while Ginger got the blue star, certainly there's no facilitation to the end of what she proposes.
True enough, Chris. Well, hang in there, and thank you for keeping us informed.
Thanks a lot, Your Honor.
See you later. Okay, we got to go to Wrigley Field. After the Wrigley Field, I'm going to entertain the Kimchi Kid, and then we'll go to Hope Cristobal's screen test.
Every company needs money to grow and take on the challenges 2023 will bring.
That's why Bank Pacific's commercial loan officers stand ready to help you.
We offer several programs tailored to assist companies to get to the next step or perhaps for a startup,
including working with SBA or GITA.
Now we're banking on the future. Services to choose. Bank Pacific, where others put branches.
Bank Pacific.
We want to be your partner.
Equal opportunity lender. Member FDIC.
Credit conditions apply.
Join us at Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro and see why they've been crowned Guam's best Chamorro food restaurant for 9 consecutive years. Experience Chef Peter's candied salmon over scallion coconut rice, octopus tinactac, Chamorro platter, and their award-winning gourmet burgers. Or if you're looking for something healthy, try their keto-friendly menu. Come and enjoy Mezcla's half-a-day service at their Hagåtña location from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. for lunch, 5:30 p.m. to 9 p.m. for dinner, or 10 a.m. to 2:30 p.m. for their famous Sunday brunch.
Okay, so here we are, Wrigley Field for the 7th inning stretch. That means I only got 2 more innings until the end of the game today. But it is Monday, so we got 4 more whole days ahead of us. So I'm glad of that. So let's find out what the Kimchi Kid wants to tell us. Tell us, kid.
Hey, there, Mr. Klitzkie. I just gotta, because unless I miss something, this talk about the governor's proposal to increase by 20% or however amount she wants to increase the pay for GovGuam. How come nobody has asked her to explain it out? Put her on the spot and have her explain it out. Get her numbers. Everybody is just, so far what I'm hearing, and maybe I missed something when I was reading, so far everybody is just dancing around trying to figure out what, where's this money going to come from? Can they really afford it? Have her, point blank, tell us where is that money, where's that money coming from? How is it, and how can you justify it with all the other mess that is going on in the government?
She's had her director of administration, her director of her director of public health come forward with such explanation as there is. I suspect, and she has made speeches as to why it's warranted and that we can't afford it, etc. So she's taken a stab at it. I can't say that anything that anyone has said has been very convincing, unfortunately for us.
Yeah, it's like what do you call it? A pipe dream. I just wish somebody out there. I'm a retired guy, man. My job now is to question and voice my concern. from where I'm at. So I want her to answer her, not all these other, all her other henchmen. I want her to be questioned point blank and answered in detail.
Well, I'm sure she's listening today, because my suspicion is that they monitor this show every day down there at Adelup. They've got the voice stress machines and record, and have language analysts go through it all. So I suspect she heard you. Don't hold your breath. Don't hold your breath. Don't hold your breath until you get the response you're looking for. Okay, Kimchi Kid?
Yeah. Hey, but I got one more, I just got one more subject matter I'd like to jump onto, if you don't mind.
Go ahead.
Okay, I know you're not for capital punishment.
Right.
But I am. And this island ain't big enough to keep sentencing these people to do prison time. Especially the murderers, the guys that are committing murder. Because look, especially the governor that she wants to kill babies. However sweet she sounds about it. It just comes down to she's wanting to kill babies, and then all the others that follow her, they're all in cahoots with her about killing babies. And these people, these children, these young human beings are not being allowed a chance. But these criminals have already been given a chance. They've already been given a chance. And they keep screwing on. And I'm not talking about it just any Tom, Dick, and Harry. I'm talking about murderers. And I'll go down to rapists, because so far they haven't found a cure for these rapists and pedophiles. And this island is too. There's all in the States. You can pretty much send them anywhere in the state, and they're far away. They got facilities. But here, where are you gonna? You're just gonna keep locking them up? Get them on death row, and maybe to start, preventing others from thinking about doing the same acts.
So
they've been given a chance.
I guess we. Kimchi Kid. I guess we summarize by saying Kimchi Kid is anti-abortion and pro-capital punishment, right?
There you go. Yes.
Well, thanks for
the babies that are waiting to be born, waiting to come in this world.
Thank you for sharing your views with us. I got to go on to R. Keith and another Joe. So I got R. Keith and another Joe, and we still got the Hope Cristobal show. So let's.
Kimchi Kid lived up to his name. Wow.
Yeah.
I need a glass of milk.
Yeah. Well, no hostile takeovers. Remember, no filibusters. Go ahead, R. Keith.
Good afternoon, Bob. Good afternoon, Jose. Where to begin with this particular subject? There's so much. I think the first part is, did she not pay them for a year and a half not to work?
These hardworking government employees, yeah.
Yeah. And then when the federal government was handing out, I forget what the program was, but essentially billions, because people didn't have jobs. I mean, they weren't working because there was no work. I mean, places were shut down and all that. And because it was not fair, I love that the government of Guam employees who were already getting paid for not working weren't getting this largesse. They were paid that too, correct?
True.
And so, how is this possibly remotely justifiable? What have they, and I don't mean to bash individuals. Yes, I am speaking in generalities right now. But exactly what has Gov Guam as an institution and various, staffing done to earn a 22% raise? There There is nobody on this planet outside of CEOs that gets a 22% raise. Nobody.
Directors.
Well, okay, yeah.
Yeah, maybe if you're in charge of the port, you could.
You know, let's be honest here. It's not exactly like Gov Guam is some stellar, efficient operation where the residents of Guam can look at their paychecks and the taxes taken out of it and say, yeah, I definitely get a bang for my buck. Roads? No. Schools? Hardly. Nobody answers
swimming pools.
Swimming pools. Nobody answers the phones at any Gov Guam office, maybe one or two exceptions. Rev and tax is just, comedic. You go there and you spend the whole day. There is nothing that justifies this type of award, and that is what it is. It's an award, except that they put her into office.
I think it was Andrew Jackson who said that to the victors belong the spoils, right?
Oh, yeah. This, just like every third world banana republic, party membership has its privileges. To borrow from the old American Express, commercial membership has its privileges. Well, here we got party membership has its privileges. So during the pandemic, while there were food lines, and people, without money to get diapers and food, the Gov Guam employees were sitting around cashing their checks doing squat. Then they got a raise, and we're only now, as an island, economically starting to come back. And she's going to reward them again.
Yeah, it's aggravating.
Any idiot that voted for this woman needs really to have a 2x4 upside their head. This is really ridiculous, and the people who are on the government of Guam payroll should be outraged.
Well, we'll see in tomorrow's paper how they behaved at the hearing today. Thanks a lot for calling, R. Keith. I still got to go to Hope screen test, and I've got another Joe on the line, so I want to thank you again for calling in. So we're going to go to Churchill Downs, then the screen test, and after that, we'll work in another Joe down the home stretch.
Join us at Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro and see why they've been crowned Guam's best Chamorro food restaurant for 9 consecutive years. Experience Chef Peter's candied salmon over scallion coconut rice, octopus tenactac, Chamorro platter, and their award-winning gourmet burgers. Or if you're looking for something healthy, try their keto-friendly menu. Come and enjoy Mezcla's half-a-day service at their Hagatnya location from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. for lunch, 5:30 p.m. to 9 p.m. for dinner, or 10 a.m. to 2:30 p.m. for their famous Sunday brunch.
Attention investors, Century 21 Realty Management is proud to present an investment opportunity you have to look at. Ladera Towers Condominium provides luxury living centrally located in Manila with access to the entire island. Ladera Towers has 3-bedroom condominium units available now. See them before they're all gone. 4-bedroom units sold out. This investment is only going to appreciate in value. Call now, Century 21 Realty Management. The number is 647-5003, or visit laderatowerguam.com or guamproperties.com.
So here we are, Churchill Downs, and we head from Churchill Downs straight to Hollywood. And we stick our heads in one of the studios and we watch Hope Cristobal doing her screen test, hoping to land a role in Hollywood. So let her rip, Jose.
Colonizer! You're nothing but a white colonizer. That's who you are. Colonization is the same thing as slow murder. You're a murderer. That's who you are. need to just do different. We need to do better. Get off my island!
Sir, you need to go. You can't be policing people here and telling people how to protest and what to protest for. You need to go. You need to go. I'm against this. That's cool, but you cannot be policing people and telling them how to protest and what to advocate for. She has a right to yell.
I'm an indigenous tomorrow. I have more rights here than you are. You came here because of the structures of colonialism, asshole. Tayo mamalaw how sige juju tano. Itaw tano how. Wahu bini taw tano. Wahu bini magahoda. Wahu the short na guy juju bini. Hago taza the short bini. What's on you? You need to leave.
You need to go.
Please.
You need to get out of here.
Please pause this.
Get out of here.
Please, this is not just
When I get a chance, go.
Please. Thank you. Thank you, Pastor. Please leave. No, you can't let me.
What happened, ma'am?
Well, he confronted me.
What did he
He's
say?
telling me I shouldn't be here. I support Black Lives Matter. It's part of the colonialistic systemic racism. And I came here to support these people. He's a white man that has come here. And he continues the legacy of colonialism. He continues to fight people, individuals, my goodness. I'm a former senator. I authored the Commission on Decolonization.
We are proud of you, Auntie.
So just Malasi.
So there you have it. The face and voice of the separatist movement here in the island, the chairman of the Chamorro Language Commission, a one-time senator who will tell you that she is the one that drafted the bill that created the Commission on Chamorro Independence. And I think she provides a valuable service here every Monday, because if there were some thought about Guam separating from the United States and becoming an independent sovereign country, would she be part of the leadership of that country? And if so, what would the living conditions be like? Probably not so hot. Okay, I've got a few minutes left here. I've got another Joe that wants to talk about what was it? Capital punishment. Kind of a dead subject, Jose. For some, it could be electrifying, however. I just read the other day that the firing squad is coming back. So the firing squad is so much more dramatic, because if they're gonna stick a needle in your arm, you can't take that last drag off the cigarette and say, "I don't need a mask." It just doesn't work at all.
We can get your 21-gun salute at the same time.
Exactly. All right, let's hear what another Joe wants to tell us. Go ahead, another Joe. Another Joe, can you hear me? Earth to another Joe. Earth to another Joe. Come in, another Joe.
Oh, I apologize, Uncle Bob. I can hear you. I apologize.
Yeah.
Okay.
I hate to interrupt you when you're so busy.
No. I made a mistake. I'm only human. I'm sorry. Put on mute. So, Bob, I'm against
You're human?
Unfortunately.
For yourself or for the human? Go ahead. Go on. Enough of this.
Well, I'm not a biologist, but I'm pretty sure.
All right.
I'm against capital punishment. I think it's a slippery slope. Once you open that can of worms, it's going to be hard to put the worms back in the can.
It's a slippery slope, and once you open that can of worms, there's no end to how many metaphors you can mix.
There you go.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm definitely against capital punishment. And if you're a Christian in the majority Christian community, which I think is probably why you're against it, how can you resolve, killing a human being for whatever reason, except if you were to get some sort of message from God. Of course, people are going to question you. Talk to God. And the only people.
I'm going to give you my 3 reasons again, another Joe. And up until just maybe a month or 2 ago, Catholic doctrine was not against capital punishment if there is a necessity. But of course, given the current state of our church, the Pope can change Catholic doctrine, but only under one condition. He has to be on an international flight going somewhere or coming back to Rome. That's the only time he can do it. Yeah, so 3 reasons I'm against it. One, I don't like statism. I think that the state should have the minimum amount of power necessary to provide that effective, efficient government that provides basic service in accordance with law, with the rule of law on at least a break-even basis, and that's all. And killing people is not a basic government service. So I'm against it because I don't like statism. Second, I'm against it because it's obviously so very final. There's no error correction room involved. If it turns out that the wrong person has been put to death and legally because of capital punishment, there's no way you can make it right. And then third, given the mass media communications we have nowadays, we're turning up a lot of situations where people who have been condemned to death actually should not have been killed. And this is one place it's got to be error-free. The old saying is that it's better to let 100 guilty men go free than to kill one innocent man. That's my reasons. It's not Catholicism. Although I guess the 4th reason is that we do have a commandment that says, "Thou shalt not kill."
Can I ask you a question real quick?
Certainly.
What do you think is worse, corporal punishment under martial law or capital punishment under a so-called democracy?
Corporal punishment under so-called martial law, obviously.
That's worse?
No, that's the least bad.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks for your time, Bob. Just keep listening.
Always good to talk to you, another Joe. So I've got about 10 minutes to go here. I'm going to plunge into the card. And the first item on the card is Julian Jansen versus Working People. It's been on the card for quite a while, but I just never got to it. But I think it's really appropriate now that we've had this hearing on the 22% raise. And you'll recall the governor came out and said, effective January 31, I'm enacting a 22% raise for most of the government to be effective on April 1st, 15th. Yeah. And she says, and by the way, I'm also sending an appropriation bill for $16 million to the legislature. So she put the cart before the horse. And I commend Chris Duenas, whether it's a good idea, a bad idea, or a stupid idea, whether we can afford it or we can't afford it, you don't spend $15 million on a one-off basis. We have annual budgets. If you want to spend $15 million on something, you put it in the annual budget and you run it through that entire process. If you can't do that, then don't do it.
The systemic racism narrative is, what, you don't like raises? And he said absolutely nothing to that point.
Exactly.
But they're still arguing it.
Exactly. So here's Julian Jansen's take, and I've labeled it Julian Jansen versus Working People. And it ran in the PDN, "The working people of Guam deserve a raise," is the headline. Now, of course, we know that Julian Jansen didn't write the headline. Otherwise, it probably would have been a little harder left, but that's another story. Recently, and here's what he said, recently, Governor Leon Guerrero approved a 22% increase in the general pay plan and has since introduced a bill to implement this pay raise at the beginning of April. This pay raise is crucial to ensure that the foremost instrument of the people is able to function effectively on their behalf. I get to, what is this, the first sentence? the second sentence, and I'm already stopped.
It's only a 2-hour show, Bob.
God. The pay raise is crucial to ensure the foremost instrument of the people is able to function effectively. Government über alles. Yeah. You know, I mean, with a lead off like that, you got a pretty good idea that none of the rest of it's going to make any sense either. Every service provided to the people of Guam by their government is ultimately delivered by the government of Guam workforce, except for those enlightened places where we have contracted with private companies like the power plant, you know, to end power outages. Like some of the schools have these build, lease, operate type situations. And even if that's the case, so what? This is important. Underpaying GovGuam workers is simply not an option if our community wants high-quality public services. Well, it's not an option if we don't want it, because that's what we get. Substandard pay will yield substandard service. This guy's got a mind like a steel trap. The wages of GovGuam workers are not fair, and their families have suffered as a result. Oh, okay, now I'm convinced. It's not fair, Jose. Yeah, it's just plain not fair. It's not fair that the guys that drive the buses to haul the tourists around, which is where the money to pay these salaries comes from, are making $12 an hour when government of Guam school bus drivers are making up in the high 20s with health insurance, retirement, and the whole thing. Well, yeah, but it's the other way, isn't it? Yeah.
It is.
Yeah, it is. It's just not fair. And, of course, I think it was Friday that I pointed out that government employees don't pay taxes. They're tax consumers, not taxpayers. And all of the revenue that comes to pay taxes comes from workers in the private sector. None of it comes from GovGuam employees because they consume taxes. So Julian Jansen goes on to say, the Department of Administration has provided a persuasive presentation that demonstrates that salaries under the GovGuam are not competitive on a national basis. Does that mean, Jose, that people are not packing up and leaving California or Florida or Texas to move here to take GovGuam jobs? That's shocking. How can we possibly have a workforce if we're not luring people to move here from the mainland, if we're not competitive? Wow. In fact, this is supported by the simple fact that since the general pay plan was last increased in 2014, the wages of U.S. workforce rose 35%, and even private sector wages in Guam, which I believe are generally too low, but that doesn't matter, have risen 26% in those 9 years. Pay equity, there's that word, equity, within GovGuam has suffered as well as autonomous agencies have adopted pay raises, and the legislature has provided more competitive pay to law enforcement, nurses and medical professionals, teachers and attorneys at the AG. So what, if you're going to give it to one, you got to give it to everybody else. By no means should these workers be deprived of fair wages. They deserve their way and probably even more. Since the last update to the general pay plan, the cost of living had reduced the purchasing power of its salaries by 26%. This has undermined the quality of life that GovGuam workers' households could expect from their government service. Shocking. The wages and salaries offered by the private and public sectors on Guam should be competitive and offer good quality of life for workers and their families. Why? Is that realistic? Yeah, I've used this before, Jose. I've interviewed a lot of people and hired people, and oftentimes I'll say, "Well, I think you're just what I'm looking for this job." And I think what we could probably do, we could start you out at $14 a month. I mean, $14 an hour. And so often people would say, "Oh no, please, Mr. Klitzkie, that would be too much. I'm not worth that much. Don't pay me $14 an hour. Pay me $11 an hour. That's better." By no means should these workers be deprived of fair wages. You pay what you need to hire the people you need, and you assign the people to the work, right? Not the other way around. Since the last update to the general pay plan, the cost of living has reduced, I read that already. The wages and salaries offered by the private and public sectors on Guam should be competitive. What about the private sector? They're not even close to competitive with GovGuam. Yeah, it's time for me. I'll pick up. I don't want to leave this. I want to pick up on this tomorrow. We'll come back to it tomorrow. And right now I got to say, let's go, Brendan.
Point is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
Cleanup efforts back on. I'm Laura Cantor, Fox News. Environmental Protection Agency officials providing an update from East Palestine, Ohio, Sunday on the train derailment. A 38-car train crashing 3 weeks ago, leaking hazardous chemicals into the air and water. Here's EPA Region 5 Administrator Deborah Shore.
Today, I'm pleased to announce that we have identified EPA-certified facilities that will be able to accept at least some of these wastes, meaning that the railroad will be able to restart shipments tomorrow.
The EPA ordering a pause in the cleanup Saturday after material was brought to sites in Michigan and Texas. Shore saying some of the liquid waste will be disposed of in an underground injection well in Vickery, Ohio, and some of the solid waste will be incinerated in East Liverpool, Ohio. In the meantime, the EPA is continuing to look for more disposal facilities. The NTSB announcing Sunday that Friday's deadly medical plane crash in northern Nevada was due to a mid-flight breakup of the aircraft.
The aircraft did not have any flight data recorders on it or cockpit voice recorders, nor was it required to. This is something that the NTSB would like to see the FAA require.
NTSB Vice Chair Bruce Landsberg. Landsberg saying all possible causes for the crash will be investigated, including this weekend's Midwestern storms. The crash claiming the lives of 5 people, including a patient. Nearly 60 migrants have been killed and dozens more missing following Sunday's boat crash off the Italian coast. The wooden boat was filled with migrants when it smashed into rocky reefs and broke apart. The Italian Coast Guard says at least 80 people survived the crash. America is listening to Fox News.
Connect to Fox News Audio on the Fox News app. Listen to hear your favorite hosts like Brian Kilmeade, Jimmy Fallon, and Guy Benson standing up for what's right, live and via podcast. Just click listen, then swipe right and hear the latest news updates on your time. And scroll down to hear the latest podcasts from Fox News. And it's even easier to listen in the car with Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. Get programming alerts and notifications. Fox News Audio is on the Fox News app. The voices America trusts. Download it now. from the Fox News Podcasts Network.
I'm Ben Domenech, Fox News contributor and editor of the Transom.com daily newsletter, and I'm inviting you to join a conversation every week with the smartest thinkers out there about the issues Americans face and where we are going as a nation. This show will feature deep dive interviews with newsmakers and some of your favorite Fox News analysts. I hope you'll join me as we dive into the fray. It's the Ben Domenech Podcast.
Subscribe and listen now by going to foxnewspodcasts.com or wherever you download podcasts.
Fox News has learned more than 1 million migrant encounters taking place at the southern border since October 1st of last year. Fox's Matt Finn has the details from Mission, Texas.
Our crew saw a rather large group of migrants cross into the Eagle Pass area, a dozen of migrants processed by the U.S. Border Patrol. And over the past couple of months, we've noticed that in the Eagle Pass area, which historically has been very busy, our cameras have showed you tens of thousands of migrants across into that area. The past couple of months, the larger groups has slowed down. And Texas DPS tells us they're still seeing upwards of 1,000 migrants per day in that sector, but the migrants are coming in smaller, staggered groups.
The Biden administration says there's been a sharp decline from the record high of 251,000 in December to over 156,000 in January. Police arresting a man in connection with a deadly accident involving cyclists in Arizona. More from Fox's Paul Stevens.
Police arresting the driver of a pickup truck, 26-year-old Pedro Quintana Lujan, on numerous charges, including 2 counts of manslaughter, 3 counts of aggravated assault, and 18 counts of endangerment. 2 bicyclists were killed, 11 others hospitalized after Quintana Lujan allegedly hit the cyclist Saturday morning in Goodyear, Arizona. A woman died at the scene. A man died at a hospital. Police say Quintana Lujan stayed at the scene. No word of speed or an impairment played a factor.
In NBA news, the Atlanta Hawks hiring Quinn Snyder as the team's new head coach, replacing the recently fired Nate McMillan. Snyder previously coached the Utah Jazz for 8 seasons, and Portland Trailblazers star Damian Lillard scoring a franchise and career-high 71 points and 13 three-pointers in the team's 131-114 victory over the Houston Rockets. I'm Laura Cantor, and this is Fox News.
KFC's